Hi, folks. It's Roy, and it's the 9th of June, Monday night. I hope you're getting ready for Father's Day, because in my opinion, that's probably the most important holiday of the year. In fact, I tell my folks at the hospital and clinic it's more important than Mother's Day. And half of them like that, and half of them want to throw a shoe at me. But anyway, glad you could make it on the show tonight. And somebody really special I have bringing on tonight. It's Connie Scheels. Folks, this lady is a two-time survivor of cancer. She's doing a lot of work helping people like you get through their own cancer, utilizing Tai Chi and Reiki, and I'm really excited to meet her. In fact, I met her about 45 minutes ago, and we've been talking off and on. So I think you're going to like this lady, and you just got a glimpse of her face when she left. So, Connie, let me have you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, and where you're from.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on tonight, Dr. Roy. It's a pleasure to be here to share my story. I am currently living in Memphis, Tennessee, and I am a two-time gynecologic survivor. 6 years ago, I started with the diagnosis of endometrial cancer. It was early. I was very lucky. It was stage 1A, and then about a year and a half or so later, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Wow. Now, you don't look very old. Did the docs have any trouble picking that up in the beginning with you? Because I don't think many people would think cancer when they'd see you walk into the clinic.
No, I was diagnosed very young. I was 33 when I was first diagnosed with the endometrial cancer, and they didn't really know why it happened. I was tested for the BRCA1 and BRCA2 and the Lynch syndrome, the known gene mutations, and turned out to be negative, which was great, but left great big question marks as to why this happened. And then a year and a half later, when I had the second tumor growing, it was really a big question mark, and I was very special. All of my gynecologic oncologists thought I was always very special because it should have never really happened once, and for a second diagnosis to come so quickly afterwards was extremely rare, and for them to turn out to be two different primaries was also very rare. So I was treated very aggressively. For the first cancer, for the endometrial cancer, I just had a partial hysterectomy. When I was 12, I had an ovarian cyst that was about 9 pounds and was the size of a basketball, but was not cancerous. So I had lost one ovary when I was 12. So they didn't want to take the other ovary at 33 at my cancer diagnosis. So I just had a partial hysterectomy, and then turns out a year and a half later, right where my uterus had been, another cancerous tumor grew again, not grew back, but grew again, and they couldn't figure out why. For a while, at first, they thought it was recurrent endometrial cancer. There was some shadows and things happening in the lower lumbar spine and in the pelvic bones area, so they thought at first that it was endometrial cancer that had metastasized into my bones, which was an extremely terrifying and unsettling kind of initial diagnosis. But after some more CT scans and some more research and testing, it was decided about a year later, and it took about a year to get the diagnosis really confirmed that it was a second primary of ovarian cancer. And mine's kind of a rare ovarian cancer. It's endometrioid adenocarcinoma, so that's kind of a big word. But that's what they decided that it was.
Now, anybody in your family have cancer?
My paternal grandmother died of colon cancer, and I have a distant cousin on my mom's side that had breast cancer, but other than that, not that I know of. So it was just kind of a lucky, kind of in a bad way. It was kind of lucky, but having cancer really changed my life in such positive, wonderful ways, which maybe sounds weird to some people if you're just diagnosed early. But truly, it was the catalyst that for many amazing things to happen. Really, I just wrote a letter to cancer at a retreat I was at. I was teaching Zen Method Tai Chi to some ovarian and cervical cancer survivors up in West Virginia, and we all wrote a letter to cancer. And when I sat down, the first thing that I thought of was cancer broke me open. And cancer really did, in a first a horrible way, and then really it taught me gratitude, and it really opened up my personality and opened me up spiritually and emotionally. It just has taken a little time.
Okay. Now, you remember what symptoms you were having in the very beginning with both cancers? Were they different, similar, or just by mistake they found the second one, or what happened?
I didn't have any symptoms at all, really. A nurse practitioner saved my life. So if those nurse practitioners out there, thank you for what you do and the care that you give to your patients, because it really does matter. I hadn't had any health insurance for about 10 years. I had moved down to Florida in August of 2007 and got a job with a big hospitality company. And so I waited my allotted 90 days and got my appointment to my gynecologist right away. And the nurse practitioner just said, there's just something not right about the lining of the uterus, and we're going to watch it. And she was very tenacious and found the endometrial cancer very early. It was just a stage 1A. It was really just a tiny speck. But because she found that, the ovarian cancer was found very early also. So none of it had metastasized. I didn't have any symptoms whatsoever from the ovarian cancer either. But that's a really important point, because one of the things I do now is advocate for ovarian cancer awareness and research funding. And ovarian cancer is a very deadly cancer because there's no early detection screening whatsoever. So women really have to listen to our bodies and pay attention and get in tune with ourselves. So there are some symptoms to be aware of. One of them is bloating, and anything that's abnormal for you for more than 2 or 3 weeks, please go see your gynecologist and ask them to just rule out that you have ovarian cancer. The main symptoms are bloating, trouble eating, feeling full really quickly, pelvic or abdominal pains, feeling the need to urinate urgently or a lot, something that's unusual for you. But some of the other symptoms can be fatigue, upset stomachs, heartburn, back pain, pain during sex, constipation, menstrual changes. So a lot of them, that probably sounds like a lot of different things, and unfortunately that is the case. So women really need to listen to their bodies, pay attention to your symptoms, and please go see your gynecologist. If you need a way to help track your symptoms, the Ovarian Cancer National Alliance has an app that's free. You can download to your phone and help track your symptoms. And the Ovarian Cancer National Alliance is an absolutely fantastic resource. They contribute to research, but they are absolutely great resource for a lot of symptom information. They have a great community. They have a conference coming up in July in Washington, D.C. that I've got to go the past 2 years, and I'm going again.
Okay. Now, emotionally, what was going through your mind with the first time and second time? Was there any difference, or were you on top of everything, or?
No, I wasn't on top of anything. At the first diagnosis, it was just crushing. It was terrifying and really scary, and you feel like you've kind of dropped through the rabbit hole. I felt like I was given a death sentence. And and my cancer was very early stages, and in a lot of ways I was very lucky. But I really felt like I was giving a death sentence. And I did a lot of crying. I did a lot of praying. And I was in Florida, so I was far away from my family. At that time I had just 2 nieces, my 2 oldest nieces, and I very clearly remember sitting in my condo in Florida, wondering if they would ever know who I was, and if I would see them again, and what I would be like, and who would remember me in the family, and what would be my legacy that I would leave to anybody. And somehow I was led to being grateful. So I just started being grateful for little things, and sometimes it was just I was reaching really hard some days. I was grateful, for rain. I was grateful for, the food in the house. And you just start small, and then you start seeing that you can be grateful for the lessons that cancer is teaching you, and grateful for being able to move. because there, after surgery, it was really difficult to move. It took a long time to rebuild my strength. So all those things, gratitude gets sharpened my focus.
How long did that take you to start becoming grateful? Was that a gradual thing, or did you have any coaches, or did you just stumble on that by yourself?
I don't really remember how I stumbled. It just kind of appeared, and it was about probably towards the end, after I had recovered from the first surgery, that my focus just kind of shifted. That I could decide to be, miserable and feel pathetic and feel pity for myself, or I could, start realizing how much light and love there was around me and in me, and really decide to start letting that shine. It was just an internal shift that I'm not sure where it came from, but it happened, and it started me on a really awesome path.
Now, with the second diagnosis, did you crash as bad, or was it better, or?
The second diagnosis was different because I was totally just unprepared. I wasn't even going to go to my follow-up CT scan, and then I felt a lump in my breast and thought, oh crap, now now I have this problem, and I put it off for a couple of months, and finally went to my primary care doctor and said, I'm feeling this little lump, and I know it's probably nothing, and I'm probably overthinking. And she said, well, I think that's fine. It's just a fibroid, but you're overdue for your CT scan, so let's do a mammogram and a CT scan, and we'll do it all together, and we'll see what happens. And so I was very nervous about the mammogram part. That was the first one I had, and I was pretty young to have it. I was only 34, I think, at the time about that. And they told me right away the mammogram looked great. I just had fibroids, no problem, and I was breathing big, heavy sighs of relief out in the waiting room and thinking everything was sweet. Hadn't occurred to me one single bit to be worried about anything else. And then the doctor comes out and does that, or the nurse comes out and calls you back, and they said, there's a tumor. We're not sure what's going on right now. It's right by your kidney. It's kind of close to your bone. We don't. And it just takes the wind out of you. And I, also did a lot of crying, and there was a lot of why me? What I thought I had kind of learned my lesson that cancer had to teach me, and I was being grateful, and things were starting to go good again in life, and it knocked me down.
Was there any family around at the time, or
I have a very good friend that was a roommate to me, and he was a huge support, and still is. He's wonderful. But my whole family was in Memphis still. I was down in Naples, Florida during this part of the cancer journey. So not only did I have to go to the doctor and hear bad news or confusing news or emotionally charged news, then I had to go back to the parking lot and sit in the car and call my mom in the middle of the day during her work day, and try to pull myself together enough to talk and deliver the news. And I think that was one of the hardest parts of the whole process, is not having her there all the time. She came down for the surgery, and then she came back when I started radiation a few weeks later. So they decided, as we talked about, to treat me really aggressively since I was so young and healthy. So after the second surgery, I did 6 weeks of external radiation, and then had a surprise of 3 internal radiation treatments, which were truly just really painful and uncomfortable and scary. But that was part of the treatment. So. Go ahead. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Do you have the same medical team on both episodes of cancer? Did you change, or?
I started for the endometrial cancer. My gynecologist took care of that. He had a gynoc come in for the surgery part, but I never really saw him again. He was in Miami. For the second diagnosis, my insurance changed, so I had to go to a different gynecologist at that time, and I think I only saw him once, and he referred me to the gynecologic oncologist up in Fort Myers right away. So he he was probably relieved. I had a pretty major breakdown in his office, so he was probably really glad that I wasn't coming back.
Okay.
But no, so it was two different medical teams.
Okay. How'd you get
Um,
along with them? Was it a
um,
good relationship or one, I don't know.
I think for my first gynecologist, when he told me that I had cancer, he seemed to blame. Well, he said that it was because I was overweight, and he just kind of sat down at his desk and said, "You have cancer, and it's because you're overweight." And I thought that was, maybe there was a little bit of truth to the fact that having more fat on your body, there's more estrogen, so maybe you have a higher risk. But to tell somebody in that way, I thought was very discompassionate and kind of really crappy. So that was hard. So I wasn't a big fan of his after that.
Okay. I
But
could understand.
I think I like to think that he was doing the best he could, and I've worked on forgiving him and releasing that negative energy from the process. So. But my gynecologic oncologist in Fort Myers was fantastic. He was wonderful. His whole team was great. They took really good care of me. I had no issues. He sat there and answered very question after question after question, and ran through all of my options. And I really liked the fact that after he would have all of his options laid out, you could do radiation, or you could do this surgery or that, and then he'd always say, or you can do nothing. And it made me feel empowered to think I have a choice. I don't have to just do whatever they say. I can think through and take some time to say, okay, maybe this doesn't feel like the best option for me. So I think that was, I liked the way he did that. So I
You
did
know,
follow his advice, but it was nice to know that there were other options.
my experience is those people who really do take control of their care as a whole do a lot better than the person who comes in and just says, do whatever you need to do, and I'll find out by the insurance bill what you did to me. And
Right.
I don't think any physician expects the people to say, I don't think this drug is good, we should do that drug, but I think they need to hear from the doctor why he or she wants to do it, and if it doesn't make sense, then they need to ask, why are you telling me that, until it does make sense, until they can buy into the process. But
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah. I think there should be a lot more interaction and explanation with the patient.
yeah,
And I think I would like to see a lot more whole person care. It's great that the gynecologic oncologists are focusing on the physical treatments, but I would have liked to know, hey, you can go to this Reiki practitioner, or there's this yoga class or Tai Chi class or something to help me move through the emotional side of the issues, which is why I've kind of become more of an advocate and learned some of those things on my own to help other survivors who are either in treatment or just out of treatment, help them find a more balanced approach to their treatment and recovery.
very good job, great transition. I was reading one of my publications over the weekend. Barry Caslett, which is a PhD at Sloan Kettering, who's been very involved in the integrative care of oncology patients, says, it's the integrative medicine approaches that lessen the side effects of the cancer and the cancer therapies that help so much with people. So why don't you tell me about some of those things now?
Well, it was in the middle of my first diagnosis that a friend of mine in Florida introduced me to Reiki, which is a way of balancing the energy centers, also called chakras, in your body. It's a very relaxing thing, and she did a treatment for me, and I just loved it, and it really felt very relaxing, and it gave me kind of a mindful way to just relax and let some of these things, kind of picture things letting go of the fears and the worries and all those things with Reiki. So I really enjoyed it, and I went through the training. So I'm a Reiki 2 practitioner, and I do it for myself. I do a distance Reiki for people that I care about and people that ask me, and it's just a nice kind of a calming meditative kind of therapy of sorts.
Yeah.
So, it's not a healing. You know, I don't think of it as I'm healing you or I'm healing myself. It's just a way to be mindful and find some kind of centeredness and balance and grounding when you're going through a stressful situation.
Well, you know, we're learning now that a sense of calmness and a sense of well-being is so important on the immune system, and the immune system is so important in fighting the cancer that all that really makes a lot of sense. If we can get our mind quiet, our body quiet, our immune system's going to do better. We're going to have less pain, less difficulty with sleep. So that makes a lot of sense, and that's what Dr. Cathlis talks about a lot in her books and works that she does.
Yeah, that's great. And I also encourage people to meditate, and you can meditate however it's comfortable for you to think about. If you just want to sit quietly and just focus on your breathing, or if you want to focus on sharing your love with the world, or think of it as a prayer, but just as a way to sit quietly for 5 minutes and feel your centeredness and feel a connection with a higher power or God, or however is comfortable for you to feel that way, to help all those things, boost your immunity and find peace.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through a big burnout in oncology back in the early 90s and ended up meeting Carl Simonton, and I worked with him for about 4 or 5 years at his center, and he was kind of one of the early pioneers with mind-body work and cancer therapy, and he showed me how a fellow named Fozzie back at UCLA back in I want to say the late 70s, early 80s, thought the mind-body was a piece of bunk and tried to disprove it, and he found out that ladies with metastatic cancer who did guided imagery lived twice as long as those who didn't do that. And he was a big opponent to the mind-body medicine until he did the studies, and studies are showing this to correlate. Even over the last 20 years, it has never shown not to correlate. So what you're doing does make a lot of sense. It's been verified over and over, and to me, that's as good as a chemotherapy, as good as a radiation therapy that people do.
Absolutely, I agree. I think it's a multifaceted approach to a cancer treatment and recovery from cancer. I mean, when you're busy in treatment, there's so much going on, and it feels so chaotic, and you can be so tired. But it wasn't more until after, and I started recovering. I mean, I did radiation, and then I moved. My mom said, my gynoc said, I think you need to do chemo, and my mom said, I think it's time for you to come home. I needed somebody to take care of me. I was very weak. I was really sick. So my blessed angel of a mother drove from Memphis to Florida and picked me up, and I came home, and that was a great blessing. And I don't know how I would have gotten through chemo without her. She was by my side through the whole time. So during that time, I don't know. I did praying. I did some meditation, but I don't know how much other stuff I could have handled physically. I was just exhausted. But afterwards, I was looking actively for some way to process and move through all these emotions and help restore my body and restore my spirit, and found a couple of different things. I found Young Living essential oils. After chemo, my legs and knees were in horrible shape. It was extremely painful to move at all. It was very frustrating. My oncologist had me on lots of different medicines to try to help that, and nothing helped, and things kind of got worse. So a friend of mine gave me a sample of Young Living's peppermint oil, and that relieved the pain like nothing else did and gave me no side effects. And I just fell in love with it, and it was the thing that I had been looking for. So I've done a lot of research on essential oils, and I now write a monthly guest blog article on essential oils for a reflexology friend of mine at Footsteps in Eden, and it's just fantastic. And my battery is getting low, so I need to pause to plug in, okay?
Okay. My God, she's going to make me talk now, folks, and I don't know what to say. Anyway, Reiki, people say, how does it work? And I tell people, as an acupuncturist, it works probably a lot like acupuncture, that And acupuncture removing the chi throughout the body, and Western doctors say, what the heck is chi, and we don't know. Can do some MRI studies and notice some differences. If I stick a needle in my finger, it's going to show up a certain area in my brain. But acupuncture is working with energy levels just like the Reiki is. And now she's back, so
Yes.
You got me off the hook.
I'm back, yes.
So
okay, good. You did great. You did really good.
Why don't you tell me where that blog is on the essential oils in case people want to find that?
It is at footstepsineden.com.
That's I-N or just plain N? In Eden.
I-N-E-D-E-N.
Okay. Folks, I'm going to put that on...
And I use the reflex...
Go ahead.
I used reflexology too, so she introduced me to the essential oils, which I loved, and then we coupled that with the reflexology treatments, and that brought my knees back. That boosted my immune system. It helped me relax. It helped it helped everything kind of balance out and start healing. So it was a wonderful discovery for me.
Nice. You know, Dr. Catholic talks about too Qigong and Tai Chi as being one of the integrative medicine aspects of getting well from cancer, healing the complications. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Connie?
I would love to. So about 3 years ago now, I went to the Ovarian Cancer National Alliance Conference in D.C. It was my first time, and it was a whole sea of beautiful teal. It was fantastic. And I met a lady named Angela Hamilton who was there teaching this method that she created called Zen Method Tai Chi in between speakers. And I was totally mesmerized and totally fell in love with the method and the flow and how easy it was to do. And it's such a great mind-body connection to help you really, she talks about it as changing the way you move through life, which is really what Zen Method Tai Chi teaches you. So it's multi-level thing. It kind of depends on your intention, but physically it builds you up because it's a great core strengthener. It helps build your shoulders. It improves your posture. It helps you slow down your breathing so you become more aware of how your body feels. If you notice a lot of tension in your neck or in your shoulders, and then ask yourself, what is that saying to you? If your neck is always tense, listening to your body again, how is your body communicating with you, and how can you respond? So I fell in love with this class she was doing, and I was very brave at the time and went up and introduced myself to her after one of the sessions, which I never did before any of that. And we became friends. A few months later, November, she called and asked if I would like to be trained to be an instructor of Zen Method. And I was totally floored and excited and honored, and said yes. And in December, I went to Arizona and went through the training. And so I've been bringing Zen Method Tai Chi to survivors in the Memphis area since then.
Neat. So how can people get a hold of you?
You can find me on my Facebook page at Catalyst for Connie's Wellness, or on Twitter, on just a very clever name, at Connie Scheels.
Okay. Okay. And then if somebody needed to find...
I was very creative the day I created my Twitter account.
Somebody wants to find a Reiki practitioner or Tai Chi, and they're not in the Memphis area, what do they do?
For Zen Method Tai Chi, currently Angela and I are the only instructors right now in the whole world. But if you go to her website, zenmethodtaichi.com, you can see where she has classes in Scottsdale. And you can also go to the YouTube channel Take Yoga Now. And back in last summer, Angela did some Zen Method classes on that channel. I think there's a couple in June and a couple in July from 2013. So you can search and find her that way.
And then maybe Reiki practitioners?
Reiki practitioners, gee, I don't. I would maybe just do a Google search in your area. Do you know? How about you know?
You know, I don't know.
I don't have. Okay.
I don't know if
I
there's an
don't have
association.
there is an association, and I'm trying to think of. There's a lady that I follow on Facebook and on Twitter who is fabulous and does a lot of Reiki, bringing Reiki into the medical community and into hospitals. Her first name is Pamela, and I don't know. I can't remember her name here. Let me see if I can find it real fast.
I tell you what, why don't you give me your email number that I can have people email you to find out if they need. You willing to do that, or you
Okay.
want to try?
You can find her name is Pam. Sure, her name is Pamela Miles, and you can find her at ReikiInMedicine.org.
Reiki in the medicine?
ReikiInMedicine.org.
Okay, folks, I'm going to put that on the video. So if you need to find a Reiki practitioner, you'll have that address, or Pamela Miles too. Connie, it's after 8:30. Anything else
Wonderful.
you'd like to say to people?
I think that's it. Tune into your bodies, listen to your body, help us raise awareness for ovarian cancer. Check out Ovarian Cancer National Alliance at ovariancancer.org. I think that's it. Thank you for listening.
Okay. Hey, folks, I want to thank you for joining us tonight and meeting Connie. I would urge you to look up her addresses, visit with her online, and I really, really urge you to find a Tai Chi person, find a Reiki practitioner. There's a ton of things you can do to get past the side effects of the cancer and the cancer therapies, whether that's radiation therapy or chemotherapy. As Connie and I were talking about beforehand, really a lot of these integrative medicine practices, in my opinion, are at least 50% of you getting well from the process. So with that, I'm going to sign out, turn us off, and then Connie and I can talk after you guys say goodnight. So good night, folks. See you later. Thank you. This will be up on YouTube tomorrow, on Tuesday. And I'll have a lot of this stuff printed out so you can find it better. So thank you once again, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for coming, everybody.